management is about keeping the train on the tracks. Leadership is about figuring out where new tracks need to be built. So leadership doesn't require a title. It does not require a position of authority in the hierarchy. It does not require that. What it requires is vision. What it requires is inspiration for other people. What it requires is somebody who has a sense of where things need to go and has the ability to inspire other people to see that vision. That's what leadership is. And you can be a leader quite literally and be an effective leader of change at any level in an organization. But you have to be willing to start to find the creative ways to deal with those things. You have to be ready to kind of step up. Every major change that we've ever experienced around this globe, every single one, they started with one person saying, this isn't right, we need to change it. And somebody else heard them and said, yeah, you're right, this is wrong and we need to change it. The next thing you know, you've got Martin Luther King Jr.'s Million Man March. You've got the abolishment of apartheid in South Africa. You've got women voting in Canada. You've got same-sex marriage in this country. It all started with one person somehow saying out loud, this isn't right and we need to change it. So how do we do that? And how do we do that without losing our jobs? How do we do that while still feeling safe while working within the systems? Well, there are ways to do that. And so some particular things that I would suggest, one is in any meetings that you're having, team meetings where your supervisor or your manager is present, broader kinds of meetings or opportunities where a leader, for instance, like your CEO or your executive director or your deputy minister might be inviting input on things. Anchor that person, anchor everyone around you to an empathic approach by asking the question that I posed to you earlier. If the client was your mother or your son, how would you want this part of the system to work? What would you want the deputy minister to do? Madam Deputy Minister or Mr. Deputy Minister. I mean, it's for people in leadership roles, it's an essential component. It's to anchor them, because I've talked before about something that I refer to as a leadership empathy paradox that I've seen. And that is that the closer you are to working in the front line, the more anchored you are to the actual experience of the clients, the more empathy you feel, because you're seeing and feeling what they're going through. You understand the reality of that perspective. The higher up you go in a hierarchy, in a structure, in terms of leadership roles, the further you are from that experience, the less you see and feel that every day. But ironically, the more power you have to change it. At the front line, we have the power to change the experience of one or a few people at a time, but yet we understand enough about the work to actually have a lot of the answers. But at the higher levels of leadership, we have the power to change everything. And yet we're not anchored every single day to seeing and feeling the experiences of the real people. So, that paradox leaves us in a situation where I believe that one of the most important things we need to do is to get our leaders to rethink where they started, because many of them started at the front line. Many of them started and worked their way up through the hierarchies. But I think they've gotten so assimilated into the sort of the management culture, the structure of our organizations, that they've forgotten that. They've forgotten what it feels like to watch people suffering and to have your hands tied by policies and procedures and money and politics and whether or not you're supporting a government getting reelected. That's not why you became a social worker. That's not why you got into the field you got into. It's not to help support any party, any politics. It's meant to help people. So the other thing you can do is find your way into management and do not lose sight of that empathy piece. We need empathy in leadership. The future of our social and health services in this country, I believe, relies more than anything on us getting people into leadership roles who understand the concept I've talked about today and who can feel it from an empathy perspective. I believe that's what's necessary. And if we can't get that, then all of us who are wherever we are in an organization, we really need to be trying to influence them, but not rationally trying to influence them, trying to influence them to feel again. And I'm not saying that they're cold, they're the Grinch, they're robots. You know, I know we might say that in the lunchrooms about them anyway, but that's a different issue. But we do need to influence them to feel that frontline feeling. Stories about people, real life kinds of stories. We got to stop thinking about making a rational case for change and instead start to make a personal, emotional case for what it is like to be the client in a system that is not about the client. That's what we need to be doing. And so keep that question that I use in mind, that, you know, that you can throw out in any meeting with anyone. If when you're trying to advocate for some kind of change, talk to the people in power and ask them, if the client was your sister or your son, how would you want this to work? What decision would you want the supervisor, the manager, the deputy minister, the minister, what decision would you want them to make about this? We need to take control of the way our systems function. And we can only do that, I believe, if we can change the nature of leadership in health and social services so that it is based primarily in empathy, not on traditional administrative and bureaucratic skill sets. Because leadership isn't just a set of skills. Leadership is a way of being. And that way of being that we need is empathic.